Dr. Jazz.
Man. Yeah, I saw you live so many times. I think, the last time with Dhafer in Ljubljana on Jazz Festival, and like the first time already, like 2008 or 2009 in Vienna with Lionel and Massimo. I think it was in Corgi
wow.
Bass. Like, but that's,
Yeah,
I think it's like
yeah.
15 years ago, man, or 14. Like, but yeah, you blew
Wow.
my mind already. And then
Oh, man,
with
thank you.
Dhafer, man, it was just like, I want to ask
Yeah.
you about some stuff there. Like, I
Yeah, we can-
transcribed some of his music, and just like how you approach those tunes. That's like, man,
Yeah,
beautiful.
good.
How you
Yeah,
did
those
it.
are good questions.
Yeah, but I just want to jump in first. Talking about Freedom. Your last one, and
Yes.
it's so beautiful. I listened to it so many times, and you wrote amazing music. And this Triumph Part Number 2, it's just like the most burning start of an album you can imagine. But like, when does it, I mean, I know Tzumo is from Hungary, so I guess that's where you connected. But where does your connection with Gregory begin? Gregory Tardy, actually.
Oh, that's a good one. I know Greg for about maybe 15, 16 years, 17,
Already,
something
okay.
like that. Yeah, so mid like 2000, maybe 5, 6, 7, around that time. And I met Greg through, well, I always knew about Greg, obviously. But actually we met and we started to play in Elio Villafranca's band.
Oh, really?
This Cuban
Oh, okay, yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So that was my first connection, and we really connected, and after that, right after that, he actually he came. Well, we did that, and then some gigs with Elio, and then I connected him with this other piano player from Hungary, Daniel Sabo, who I recorded with an album with him and Chris Potter.
Chris, yeah, sure, I have that one, yeah.
And so when Chris couldn't make the gigs, then Greg would come and do the gig.
Okay.
Right. And then he came and played with my band, with Lionel and Kenny Werner, the Triumph, album. So, that's so basically from that moment on, we've been just playing in all kind of different situations. And then finally the trio, that with Tzumo.
Yeah. How did you envision the formation of this trio? I mean, how did you come up with this lineup? And is this still like a band you want to continue working on? Because it's like really sounds like a unit.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, actually, so the whole idea came, I'll be honest with you, like, since, like I've played with Lionel, almost every gig, we have this part where we play duos, right? And so, I think it was around 2009 when I played in Siena, and I played with Kenny Werner. And so Kenny Werner, like Kenny and me, we just connected really well, and we were talking about to do a session, just play a session when we are back in New York. So I put together a session with Kenny and Lionel, just the three of us. And it really, I have that session because I record.
Oh man, you should. Wow, fuck, I want to hear that, man.
Yeah. So, but that was just like playing, right? So I really enjoyed, because also the way Lionel plays, like some bass, and so that's where like this whole idea. That's like around 2009. When this whole idea started to open up, like, wow, the way they played. And then we did the Triumph, which is already a bassless album, right? And so this trio is just basically a continuation of that, exploring different, like, with Lionel and Kenny, we never actually recorded, we just rehearsed. And then I did some other trios, other different things. And So Tzumo and me, I know Tzumo since he was 14 years old.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So because that's when I moved to Budapest, that's when I studied in the university, and we played together when I lived in Hungary a lot. Then, he came to Berkeley, he went to the Monkeys. So in any case, we always play, we always have different projects, and I love his playing.
Yeah, he's
And
really...
so in around like 2000, maybe 14, 15, I did some master classes, and to one of my master classes, I invited him, and we just played duo.
Okay.
And it blew my mind. It's like, wow, that was the first time I played duo with Tzumo. And I said, wow, let's continue. And he was feeling the same. He was like, man, we got to do something. We got to do something. And so I said, okay, let me think. And of course, Greg and we've been playing together. So I said, let's try with Greg. Let's see how that would work. And of course it worked really amazing. I mean, it's just those guys, they blew my mind. And then I started to book. 2015 was when I really decided to switch from being mainly a sideman to being mainly a band leader, which means I still play. I still play with other people, but from 2015, if you look at my schedule, if there is such a thing, I was playing mostly 80% with my band, and then few things here and there with other people, short tours, maybe short things, but mainly my trios, which includes, so we did the album with Tzumo and Greg, and then I had this other trio with Chris Chick and Lionel, and another one with Gilad and Chris Potter. So, they were the main, those were the main things, but also I did something similar with Leo Genovese and Myron Walden.
Oh, really?
Mostly in the US.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
So we had a whole tour, actually a couple of tours in the US, mostly US. It's like, I also have those recordings, but so, and that's because Myron and me, I mean, I know Myron since a long time, and then I love him, and we've been playing together since also like 10, 15 years, or 15 for sure, 2007, 2008,
Oh, wow, okay.
So, and Leo did his first European tour with me. I mean, it wasn't my band, but it was, I was on drums. This was with a Portuguese guitar player, Francisco Paes, in 2003 or 2004.
Wow, already. Wow.
So that's when I met Leo. So anyway, so many different things, but the album, we made it with Tzumo. One of the reasons actually is because it was more difficult to bring Tzumo to the States, because he moved back to Hungary. And then on the other hand, I also like changing things,
Sure. Yeah.
And same thing, like Leo and me, super connected, and so we also did a duo recording with Leo, which I never released yet.
Oh, man.
But yeah,
Come on,
so
come on.
yeah. We have all my music also, same thing, so we have a lot of history with everybody. So
Yeah.
like, this is the short answer to your question.
No, it's beautiful, man. I love it. That's beautiful. But when you envisioned writing for the album, you always written beautiful music. Like I love your tunes. I mean, they can be complex, but they can be really simple also in a way. But you can go both ways. But how do you write? Like, let's say for this trio, for Greg and Tzumo, like, because there was no bass, and also you didn't try to substitute actually the bass line that Tzumo would have to play, which is, I love that. I hate when people do that. Like how did you envision the writing process here?
Yeah, so exactly. So that's I mean, thanks, because you are listening to the music. That's my point. Like, many people, they have trios, but then they try to substitute the bass. It's like, no, then just call a bass player, because nobody plays bass as good as the bass player. So my whole idea, so first of all, when I wrote the music, I really, I already thought about
These two guys.
who is playing. Yeah. So I already had, the sounds in my head. And also, when we started to play the music, when we started to rehearse, I said to the guys, like, okay, this is the music, but this is just a roadmap, and I don't want you to play the same way, the same kind of things. So when I write music, 90% of the time I have like the melodies that are the ones that come to me. Very often, like in my phone, I have hundreds of voice recordings, because I just start to sing a melody. I was doing it earlier today, actually, to be honest with you. I just started to play, and then I actually recorded myself, because sometimes I don't even remember, but it has a flow. And so I write down the melodies, and then based on that, I choose the harmonies that I feel like that I'm looking for. And to be honest, my method is actually, in its basics, is very simple, which I learned from George Russell, this concept of going, where do you want to go? So the way he explained very simply that if you are in the center, in the equator, you can go south or you can go north. And if you are familiar with his method, it's just that. So when I start to write music, and when I start to write harmonies, I follow that. Sometimes I follow some traditional 2-5-1s, but I'm, what is leading me is like where I want to get to. And if you want to get more south, you go more in the flat direction. If you want to go more north, colder, you want to go in the sharp direction. Depending how far and how quickly you want to go, you can jump into things. So that's my, like, harmonically speaking, and I'm always learning new things and ways, but in its basics, that's where I'm at. It's like, okay, because like you said, I actually like to, and that's how I write music. Like, it has to be simple in a way that people can understand, doesn't matter what age you are, but also it needs that complexity of musicality that like, maybe it sounds simple, but actually it's 9/8 or whatever, like, or the harmony is actually a little bit more complex than what it sounds like, but people can feel it. So why I say that, because of the south and the north kind of like warm and cold kind of thing, I always listen to my music or anybody else's music based on like what feelings it gives me. Because many times, you listen to music and you are like, wow, this is great, this is complex, but like,
I know what you mean.
But it doesn't. And so I often think about that, like, when I listen to some music and it gives me the goosebumps, that's the kind of music I want to write. That's that. And how you create that. And so the complexity, you can do something that doesn't sound like, but the harmony maybe changes keys or go in a different direction, or the head in and the head out, they are in different keys, or
sure.
I mean, all kind of different things, or harmonically, rhythmically, can be all complex. And to answer to the other part of your question, yes, I did talk about that with Tzumo, specifically, that I don't want, like, I like to miss the bass. That's the whole point. Like, sometimes you play the bass and sometimes you don't, but feel free. And for me, the most important thing is that I trust these musicians. So whatever they're gonna play, I know it's gonna be good. I have to actually talk about very little things that, like, like, hey, I would like you to play an intro in this song, or just like that. And also, one thing that I often say is like, hey, I might stop playing. Don't be alarmed, because like, it doesn't mean that you have to stop. So you are free to do what you like to do. So express yourself in this music, playing my songs, because still we don't go free in the sense of musically speaking, doesn't have to do anything with the music. No, it's in that structure.
Yeah.
Let's go where we need to go. And obviously live, all of these songs, they sound, a bit different, because we do go, like, we might play a different tempo, or in the middle of the song we change, or like we get from one song to another. Like, there are so many options. Yeah.
Will you continue working with this trio? Like,
of course, yes. Yeah.
Looking forward.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When COVID hit, I thought it's gonna be something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we started to play actually a tour, and we did the first gig. It was in Hungary with Tzumo. Greg already couldn't do it because so he couldn't even come. And last minute, one of my friend Christoph Bacho, he was playing saxophone. He learned the music, but like the day before is like, hey, so, and then they shut down all Europe. So that was the last gig with the trio, March 14 of 2020. Now, since that time, because of all these uncertainties, I didn't even book anything. So in the meantime, I did sign with a booking agent who started to book for 2023 and, like for later. But for this year, I mean, last year, I'll be honest with you, I did like a short tour with my other trio, which is a new album that is going to come out, which parallel all these years, I always played here and there, not as much as with Dhafer trio, but I have this trio that I call Unstandard Trio, which is bass and saxophone and drums, which is a standard jazz trio, but it's unstandard because the way we play the music and what we play. There are some standards that I rearranged, so it has that root, and then there are some originals, and it's more straight ahead in that sense, but with some twists. And the new album is hopefully, it seems like now is coming out this fall, so that's gonna be. So I did a short tour last year with that group, but other than that, I was not booking anything serious like I usually do, because I just like, still gigs get canceled all the time. So
I hope it's gonna be. I have like a 2-week tour in October, man, and already confirmed 14 concerts in 15 days, and I just like
great. Europe.
Yeah, like Austria, Germany, and with Bob Moses on drums and Arild Andersson on bass, a trio. We did an album, and it's all confirmed, man. But I'm just like, oh, please, let's.
I think so. I saw Bob was playing in Spain just like a month ago.
Yeah.
And oh man, please say hello.
I will definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I might even talk to him before that, but I studied with him for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah,
really? Man, I didn't know that. Oh yeah, because you were in Berkeley, right? And he was kind of in that area in Boston, or?
So I took one years of private lessons with him.
Oh, okay.
And then I studied, actually, after Berkeley, I did my first year of masters in NEC, and he was teaching in NEC.
Oh, really? Oh, how cool, man. Yeah. Okay, that explains a lot now. Also, like the way you approach the drums sometimes, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, Bob has, besides many things, but 2 really important things. One is the groove. The groove is always there. The other is to be so open, like a childlike, like every time you touch anything is like it's a new thing, and you really, so it's kind of interesting, because usually people either get into one thing, they get into the grooves, and then they play their pockets that is the same all the time, or they get into this creative thing that is like super creative, but then they don't groove.
Exactly.
Now Bob is able to do both in the same time, he's super creative, but super groovy. He does not play like a groove that is like a back. Yet he plays something that it sounds like that is not, and is constantly changing. And so, I mean, we had amazing. I mean, I definitely had an amazing time, and I remember we really had a great connection, also spiritual and as person, you know. Yeah, man.
Oh, beautiful! I didn't know that. Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Okay. I'll say hi definitely to him. So if you don't talk to him before, but
yeah, I was
amazing.
man. I'm gonna just while we are talking, I'm gonna look it up and I show you this one because Bob. I mean, of course, I knew him from. I have it here. I knew him from Pat Metheny's album. You know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Bright As Life, man. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
So when I got to Boston and I saw that he's playing, you know, I was like, I can't believe that this guy is playing in a club. He was playing in a club, you know. I went to the club, I talked to him, I asked him immediately if he teaches. He said yes, and started to study with him. I was like, man, you know, this is unbelievable. So check this out. Like, I was cleaning out my stuff, and look at this. This is the flyer of the gig, the first gig that I ever went to see. I don't know if it...
check out the guys, man.
Is it
Jaleel and
backwards?
Sam Strickland. No, it's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So this is the first, I think is the first gig. So it must have been around 1999 because it says Sunday, June 20, which is 98 September. I moved to Boston, so cannot be before that.
Sure.
So at least 99 or 2000, I don't remember. This was a live recording, and then there was another. This one that I saved is also.
Oh man, that was the band. Gee, wow!
Yeah,
come on,
incredible, right? So
crazy.
yeah, so I sent it to him, and you know, he just you know, and this is this is the photo from that.
Yeah, that's a man.
That's the first time I met him in one of that gig, you know. And so cool. I have it here just because it's here in our messenger, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So I have all these things, and this one in 2020 and 2021, you know, like these years, last couple of years, we've been touched through the Facebook Messenger. Yeah. So it's funny, man. I love Bob, and it's like
wow,
really,
man. I mean, it's basically what this explains a lot, because you know, when I hear how you play, you have exactly this. I mean, you developed your own more complex way, like, you know, diving into odd meters and stuff. But you have this musicality even when you play over odd meters. What you say, you know, and you know, I wanted to ask you about this because I saw you. Like in, you know, obviously I have you on Lionel's records and playing, you know, 13 or 11 or 17 or whatever, you know, like, but I saw you with Dhafer and Joe Sanders, and I forgot who was on piano.
Oh, yes.
In Ljubljana.
Ispar Sarabski.
Yeah. And you guys played like all these incredible heavy, you know, like, I don't know, 23, 39, whatever structures. And
exactly.
How do you know, not only talking about him, but like, let's say, speaking of those structures, how do you make yourself feel comfortable in those structures that you actually, you know, you still preserve the structure, but you make it sound like as if you're really floating over it. Yeah, free in it.
So my approach is this, and this is what I also teach to everybody, because I believe what Coltrane said, and he said, I think it was Coltrane who said it, learn everything and then forget everything, right?
Yeah.
Which it's kind of simple, but so here's the way I approach things. When I learn any music, I like to, like most people, like you say like, hey, this is in 7, and then people have their ways of playing 7, right? To cup, to cup, to cut, to cut, whatever. Either 4-3 or 3-4,
or 3-4,
whatever.
yeah.
So that's okay. And you know, like when you have 7-5, these ones are not easier one. But once it gets a little bit more complex, 11, I use the same approach as I would use 5-7, which is I start to see how you can
Group
divide
it.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can say dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, or dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, cut, dot, cut, right?
Yeah.
So you can you know, like start to divide into 2s, 3s, 4s, any kind of things. And so Dhafer's music or Lionel's music. 17, right, Lionel's? Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
ga, da, da, ba, da, 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 ga, da, 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 ba, 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 da, 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 ga, ga, da, 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 ba, ga, da, ga, da, 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 ga, ga, da, ba. So I start to approach with the same idea, and within those, like, okay, you have the 2, the 3, the 4, but then inside that, you know, like how you can
triplets or whatever.
Yeah. Right, yeah, because you know, like again, you can da 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 da. You know, like you can go into da 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 or da 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 da. You know, like 16 again. So you have the big subdivisions, you have the small subdivisions. And I like to approach every music that I learn, including Dhafer's, which is more like 23, 35, 39, whatever, and put them into those kind of things that gives me freedom, because I know that I can hear it in any way, and I can go into any kind of direction. And so the way I do that is like I just did, like Lionel or Dhafer, anybody's music. I learn the bass, and have to play over that. So it's not just a mathematical thing that, you know, like, okay, if it's 35, it can be 5 times 7 or 7 times 7. No, but you also you hear the bass line over that. So it's not just like a subdivision thing, you know?
Yeah.
I think it makes a big difference because it's not that it doesn't sound mathematical. I
exactly.
think,
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when people play, like I'm listening to a soloist, I'm not thinking anything. I'm going with him, and I also know where the bass is. Now with Joe, obviously is even more open, because Joe is kind of like an open player, so it gives me even more fun, because you really got to be strong hearing the original bass line.
Exactly.
Then hearing what Joe plays on top of that, and then hearing, in that case it was Isfar, what he is doing and how we can all match while we keep the groove, because Dhafer was so strong on the groove. It's like groove, dance all the time. Always had to have that element. So I'll take any music, anything like that, and then I just go through all the kind of things. I learn the bass line usually, you know.
That helps,
That's my go-to place, and then many times I loop that bass line, and then I start to figure out what things I can do to play in 1 bar, in 2, to overlap 3 or 4, or you know, how I can make like, you know, like da 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 da, right? So that song of Dhafer, what happens is like da 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 da, like it's originally
the subdivisions,
right, when you listen to it, you have those small subdivisions. In fact, when I first joined the band, we had all this discussion with, it was Christian Randalou,
Yeah.
Phil Duncan, you know, and we had all this discussion of like, no, this is 3-3-4-4, this is 4-3. But for me, all of those made sense. But I also had the big one, the big picture always gives me freedom, because you can think like this, you know, you can so when you can think like that, that gives you the freedom to like, oh, where do I want to put a backbeat? Because if I'm already at the mind space that I have this preconcept like da 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 da
You're in
da
this
da,
tempo kind of, yeah.
then you don't have freedom.
Yeah.
But if you have like da 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 da, you know, like, oh, or suddenly you're like da 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 da, like, or da 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 da, you know, like, again, these are just the things, but then I can do all other things, but I have the freedom to move around. So always that's my approach. Gilad Exum, when I play with Gilad's music, it's super complex. Same thing. Okay, let me see what subdivisions are the small, the big ones, and how I can play them all. And when I'm on stage, I don't have to think. I just go anything, and I can go with anybody with whatever feel they have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's because it sounds so effortless when I listen to you. It's just like, you know, it's so beautiful. Yeah.
It comes from the same belief, which is, even if it's difficult, if like Dhafer hears the music like that, right? Still, you wanna give a feeling to the people that they can nod their head.
Yeah, exactly.
If people can't, then they're gonna be confused, and they're gonna just sit there and it's like exactly. You know, confused. And so while for the musicians, that's cool, the musicians like counting and trying to figure out, that's cool, but you have to think about the audience too, you know? So I try to make it as smooth as possible while it's super deep, you know? So
yeah. I know. It's like Dave Holland, you know, you listen to his stuff already in the 80s, and it's just like some 7 or whatever, and it's like, man, it's Billy Kilson or Marvin Smitty Smith killing it on drums, man. It's like,
yeah.
So I love that.
So Dave, you see the music of Dave, it's 99%, and I know this because, you know, he came when we were in the Monk Institute, so we play with him. You know, I've played his music with him. You know, it's like,
man.
He thinks of the big, you know, like it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know? And then whatever happens in between, all of those songs, what is it called? Prime Directive. You know,
yeah. For instance,
I mean, I haven't listened to that stuff like years. I can't even remember. Still, you know, I remember, and I have the charts too. But the point is that he thinks of the big, and that's why it grooves.
Yeah.
You know, because that you can feel the pulse, and obviously, I mean, when you have musicians like Billy Kilson, like this, you know, like amazing musicians, you're gonna be like, I mean, it's just they're gonna make music,
yeah.
Which is so important. Like, you know, I'll be honest with you, like during COVID, I started really get strong on the education, and I tell you why. Because there are so many drummers on YouTube. There is this drummer sensation of, you know, like playing all these things, but then if you can't hold the groove, if you cannot make music, you are a drummer's drummer. On top of that, that is all, you know, like you have tens of thousands of views of all the drummers who are like, oh my god, but then he doesn't have the gig. All the other drummers, they don't have the gigs. It's like, okay, learn to play music. It's good. The skills are important.
Sure.
I practice every day. I always improve myself, but I use that to be musical.
To play music, of course. Yeah.
To serve the music, to hear. You know, when I talk about a simple thing, when I talk about how I listen to her, and how I, play with Lionel, for example. People say like, wow, you guys are so together, and you sound great. And it's so magical. Yeah, it's magical. Yeah, true. But when I tell drummers like, okay, have you ever like listened to one of your favorite guitar player, let's say, and you actually listen to how he phrases all the notes, and then you actually sit down and then you learn to play his timing and his phrases on the drums. 99% of the drummers, they say like, what? I never even thought about that. And I mean, I'm talking about people I talk to who want to study with me. I'm not talking about, the jazz masters, obviously. They know this kind of thing. But then it's like, yeah, there is some magic, obviously, because I had the connection with Lionel from the beginning, but also a lot of work. And everybody that I play with, I do listen to closely, not just what they play, but how they play.
Yeah, behind or front or everything. Yeah.
Where they play, and how can I match, and it comes again, take your ego out of the equation and just listen to the music and try to play what the music needs, and you're gonna be fine, and then you can play for whatever you want.
Yeah. Makes sense, absolutely. But it's all about the music in the end, what we do. So exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ferenc, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Bob Moses, and you coming from Hungary, my neighboring country here, and I remember the first time I went to the States in New York, how it blew my mind. But I wanted to ask you, how was your experience when coming to Boston, I guess, the first time? And
oh man,
your musical, I guess it opened up completely, like if you remember that time.
Oof, of course I remember. It's something I never can forget. At that time, in 1998, when people can't imagine now, now I start to sound old, but when I talk about like pre-internet, like I didn't have, nobody had. I knew one person who had internet in 1998, and they had a computer, they had an office, because they were doing like international, things. And so 1998, I didn't have an email address. I didn't even know. It's like, why would people use any, So imagine at that time going to Boston from Hungary, which, Hungary is like, well, first of all, I'm from a small village, 1,000 people.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Shit.
So imagine already from there, a 1,000 person village going to Budapest, which is 2 million, right? And then from Budapest to Boston. Well, it was, honestly, if I'm thinking, and I talk about this often, if I'm thinking about this in today's terms, at that time for me, or anybody that I know, I mean, I still have friends who never been in the States, but at that time, it was like really, comparing to today's standard, like almost like going to the moon.
Oh, because, sure. Hungarian States, definitely, probably. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to get the visa, forget it. Nobody got visa. I mean, are you kidding? It's like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna buy a ticket. Like now, you have the ESTA. Hello, and I can go. No, you waited months and months, and maybe they approved. Like, in fact, check this out. In 2003, when I graduated from the Monk Institute, my mother and my younger sister, they wanted to come to my graduation. They didn't get the visa.
Really? Oh man, wow.
Yes, because they were refused. You know what was the reason? They said, and that time, imagine my mom, 50 years old, still had the parents, my sisters, everybody. I mean, it's like whole family. I was the only one living outside. All my cousins, but the reason they said that she didn't get it is that they said they're afraid that she's gonna stay. in the
Oh
States.
my God! Wow. Yeah.
And this is 2003. So this is like 5 years later. So my mom, my sister, like they could never come to see where I was living in Los Angeles. They couldn't come for my graduation.
Mm.
They could, I mean, you know. So then it's like it's really like think about what are the places that you cannot go now. Well, it's the moon, right? It's kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
well, where is there any place in the earth that you cannot go? I mean, and well, I didn't mention the price
Oh, sure.
for an airplane ticket at that time. It was like, like I don't know what would be the equivalent. I can look it up. What would be the equivalent today? Like $15,000 or something.
Yeah.
Like
Bizarre.
and yeah, I mean, it was really incredible. So I do remember the feeling. I remember leaving, Hungary. I remember when I arrived. My first week first 2 weeks in Berkeley, I met people who were studying there with me. Kendrick Scott, the Anthony Parks, Adam Deutsch. You know Adam Deutsch
Oh, sure.
of Letters. Who else was there? Joel Lamkin was not in Berkeley, but he still played every Friday and Saturday at Wally's. And Charles Hayes was there.
That was the first week.
This is well, imagine this
Yeah.
was like the first 2 weeks. I saw these guys playing. It was a shock. Then in that same first 2 weeks, there was also like a honoring whatever. So Louis Belson, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, and Roy Haynes came to Berkeley. They all performed some little pieces. And Peter Erskine, Carolyn Carrington, and Steve Smith. Within the first... So
That's crazy. Yeah.
Imagine like in Hungary, let's see, who did I see in Hungary? I saw a couple of people. I saw Al Foster. I saw Paul Motion. I saw Dennis Chambers. I saw, let's say, 5 drummers from a distance in a big stage, right? And then I get to Berkeley. I'm studying with these guys that I mentioned. And I get to see, like, in Berkeley, all of those guys that living legends,
Yeah.
So how did I feel? Well, I said, I gotta practice. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
I said, it's a lot of work. And I literally, if this guy, Mike, who was working at the front desk in Berkeley, if he's still there, he can tell you. I was always the first in the practice rooms. 2:00 I was there, and always the last, 2 in the morning. And
Wow, man.
and he used to come at 2:00. He said, "School is closing." I said, "Okay." Then he goes around, kick everybody out. 2:30 he comes back. He's like, "I told you that school, you gotta leave. I said, "Okay, I'm packing." So I pretend that I was packing. Then I went back practicing. And then around 3:00 he was like, "All right, I'm staying here until you leave." So this happened every night.
Shit, yeah.
And then a year later, or not even a year later, I was playing at Wally's, and Roy Haynes showed up at the gig. And actually, so he got to play on my drums. You know Wally's, the club, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's like a 5x5, I mean, it's like
Tiny, yeah.
And I got to see Roy Haynes from this close, my drums, my sticks, my cymbals, and that was another kick that I was just like, you know what? That's why I'm here. Because I tell you the truth, coming from Hungary, I already play with everybody in Hungary, right?
Sure, yeah.
I thought I already figured out jazz. And I went to the States like, all right, I'm going to go there for a semester, learn everything, and come back to Hungary. That was the idea. It's like, okay, let me learn in a semester, and then understand a little bit, and then of course I got there. All these things happen, and I said, "That's it. It's a lifetime."
Mm.
You know, that's still happening today. Every day, I'm like learning something, and I'm still, I'm still just at the beginning, which is quite amazing because, now I'm 45. Actually, turned 46, and so it's kind of like, you when I was in my 20s, I thought this journey is like, and then I'm 46, and I'm like, man, but I'm still young.
Exactly.
or I or I thought so. But then I also know, like, all my teachers, Peter Erskine, Gary Chaffee, Bob Moses, these guys, they were my age when I got to study with them when I was 20, and I thought they were old guys. So, then I'm like, damn, it's kind of rough. Um, but the beautiful part is that every day I sit down to my drums, I enjoy just discovering sounds, rhythms,
Mm. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
language. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love you seem to have, when we talk now, this joy when you talk about
Oh,
these things. I love that,
oh
it's so
yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. Then,
Yeah.
what about coming to New York? Was it then hard for you? I mean, I know you knew probably Aaron and, I guess Massimo and had some connections already, but like moving to New York, was that an easy transition for you or?
So from Boston, I went to LA
Yeah,
because I did the Monk
the
Institute
monk. Yeah.
year. Yeah, and 2003 I moved to New York. So first of all, I always wanted to move to New York. Like, first time when I came in 98 to Boston, I went to New York with my father. I saw the city. I said, you know, this is where I want to live. So then, when I moved there, I already, like everywhere else, I felt not home. But in New York, I immediately felt home as a
Mm.
feeling. Now, musically speaking, it was the first time I was out of school and
Yeah.
like in the real life, right? So then
Yeah.
it hits you like, oh, like how do I practice? How do I practice? What do I do? And then I was always very systematic about times and what I do, how I do. Um, but here's the thing: um, people knew me because of the Monk Institute. So we were the, first, second, third generation of
Yeah.
guys that
Of course.
came
Yeah.
out. So it's kind of like it's easy to remember seven people's name. So well, first of all, I knew a lot of people from the Monk Institute. Like I said, Dave Holland, Schofield, Christian McBride, Mark Turner. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Louis Nash, a lot of people, really. So that helped. And also, a lot of people knew me that I was there, and a lot of my friends from Berkeley already moved to New
Yeah.
York. So, in one hand, it was a little bit easy because I started to play gigs. On the other hand, like I was playing these local gigs and restaurants and all kind of things, right? So, getting from that to actually being on the road, that was a transition that took me like I did short tours,
Mm.
and we had Gilfema, so we were doing
Yeah.
already Gilfema and all that. But with other people, it took me like 2 years, like 2005, when, well, two things happened. One is um, I was just like burnout of playing those small gigs.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I realized that I wasn't paying attention to the music, and what I did, I forced myself to not do those gigs. So I had a car
No.
and I was taking my drums to every gig. And so I sold my car like this. And when I sold my car, uh, I couldn't do those gigs, those local gigs. But I also said to myself, I don't want to play a gig where I have to take my drums, or if I have to take my drums, it has to be worth it. Like
Yeah.
if I'm playing a gig at the Blue Note, the Jazz Standard, whatever, it's worth to take my drums, right? Otherwise, I'm not doing it. And so that's what happened. Is like, okay, uh, I got burned out. I sold my car. I forced myself, and I was ready to, like the decision is like, okay, what kind of gigs do I want to do? Because you can get into those gigs in New York, and for the rest of your life, you can play those gigs.
Sure.
But I wanted to change, so those things happen, and that's when the transition, actually 2005, around 2005. I mean, like I said, I did always short tours, some gigs, but that's when things. And then of course, New York can be super inspiring, because those first 2 years when I was home all the time, every time, like after my gigs or before, or if I didn't play, I was in clubs. Like I was in jam sessions late night until 4 in the morning. Cleopatra's Needles, S'mores, Fat Cat, like every place that I could go. And also, those days, still, guys like Bill Stewart, Jeff Tame Watts, Brian Blade, like these guys constantly played in the city, which was super inspiring,
Sure.
So I loved just being part of that and seeing those people anytime you went down, in any clubs, like those guys that are now not really playing, or every once in a while, they were, look, I saw, like Osno with Patitucci and Jeff Tame Watts, or, like, I mean, it's like all kind of gigs, and I saw Kurt with Blade, or
Oh man.
yeah, it was super inspiring.
Yeah.
So yeah, talking about the transition,
Man.
it was both easy, but then it got so rough. I remember that summer in 2005 that I just I found myself without any gigs. So I was, in the park playing with Igor.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, man, we were just playing duo, and then some guys, they came to rap, and we just played for the head, like eating rice for a week. I mean, it's,
Tough. Wow.
Yeah.
Who were when you talk about this transition, like who were then these gigs that you scored, that you got? Like, I mean, I guess Lionel's, Virgin Forest probably was another step, that record, but like, what brought you to Europe then more frequently? With whom did you start to tour more?
Well, yeah, I mean, Lionel, we were already touring. So with him, we were touring already like 2003, 2004. 2000. That's when Gil Fema came out.
Yeah.
But I was like, some of the gigs I was playing with this guitar player I mentioned, Francisco Paes, who lives in Newport now, but at that time he was living in Providence. So a lot of people came through with him, with his group, and then I started to do a little bit of my own thing,
Yeah,
my
night songs, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that one. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then let's see, on Meravital. I mean, I already started to play with Anat Cohen in New York, and we have gigs in the States. And then Gilad, because I knew Gilad through Anat.
Oh, okay.
So we started to have some gigs, some tours with Gilad's band, and let me think, who else? John Ellis, with Aaron Goldberg. Man, it's been like so many years. But yeah, a lot of, and then later on, like Seamus Blake. And then, those are like 2010, 2009. So those are the later, but the earlier years were like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned night songs. How did you know that you want to do that record? I mean, that you were ready. I mean, the band is like, obviously, Lionel and Aaron and Cheek, but like John Patitucci, how did you land John? And how did you decide to do night songs after all, living for 4 years in New York and realizing, okay, I want to lead a band and do a record? How did that begin?
So first of all, night songs, we recorded in 2005.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So what happened is it came out, it took me 2 years to finish.
Sure. Of course.
And he had to record this live. So what happened is 2003, there was a gig where I played with John Patitucci. And after that, we stay in touch. And hey, like just like casual, how it's going. And so for night songs, I started to think of, like the music, what I want, and the concept, like. But then, it's like who's gonna be the group? So, yeah, like for example, Chris Cheek. I very soon when I moved to New York, I met Chris. I mean, again him, but like 2003, 2004, and we started to play. First in other people's band, and then I played in his band for a while, and then of course he played in my band. So I knew Chris from there. I knew Mark Turner from he came to the Monk Institute, but then I did a recording with him and the tour with the bass player from San Francisco, Emmanuel Von Lee, and Albert Sanz, this great piano player, Spanish guy. So then I knew Mark from there, right? So we've been in touch, and I always loved playing with him. And we had some gigs here and there. Lionel is obvious. John, I knew from this gig that I played with him, and we had like a really great connection. And Aaron, I knew Aaron. We met before, but we actually didn't play before. Yeah, so that was the first time we actually played, but I knew Aaron because Massimo was already touring with him. And so we knew each other, we met, and so here is the way that I thought. When I started to put together the band, the first person I actually called was John.
Really? Wow, how cool.
And this is how it happened. Super, imagine like calling, I was 2005 when we did the recording. 2004 I started to organize, so 28, right? But I was super nervous. It's John
Patitucci,
right?
Yeah, sure.
Right, exactly. But then one day I said like, you know what? If I don't call him, he's never gonna play with my band. If I call him, it's 50-50. He's either gonna say yes or no. But before, we had kind of like a good connection, a good hookup. I was like, why not? Why he wouldn't do it? Like, And I knew from the beginning that I want Lionel, because Lionel, like I always play. And so I called John, he said yes. I said, that Lionel is gonna be in the band, even if I, didn't ask, but I knew that Lionel is gonna be in the band. There was no question, because I always talk to Lionel, like if I do something, he's like, of course. So Lionel and John. Now, Lionel was playing in Terence Blanchard's band with Aaron.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always thought like, okay, if I have someone, it has to be someone that has a great connection with Lionel, because piano and guitar is very particular. So I thought of Aaron because of that, because they had a great connection. So I called Aaron. And for the saxophones, it was kind of obvious that I played already in Chris's band, and we played with other people's bands quite a lot, in New York. And he played with me sometimes. And so it was like, I have, even before I did the recording, I have some gigs that I did with Chris, Aaron Goldberg, and Massimo and me, like
different ones.
Right. And so I asked him, and because I play with Mark, I know I would like to play with him, and I also knew, because I also thought about like, I mean, if you have two saxophones, it has to be again two people who know each other, and they play together quite a bit, in different orchestras and different bands, big bands, whatever. So I knew that they would work together, and I knew that John never played with Lionel, and he would enjoy for sure, So that was kind of my angle. Like, I already knew, like, coming out of the Monkey Institute, I was already writing arrangements for, like 7 people, and so, I had that idea, and that's how it happened. It's like I just got over my fear, and I said, all right, I'm doing it, and then I put the date. That's how things work.
Smart.
Because when you put a deadline, you are forced. You are like, all right, I gotta come up with some solutions. If you don't put a deadline, things get pushed back.
Definitely, yeah. Were you comfortable as leading a band, like, especially with those guys, and was it pressure or not really?
You said especially with those guys, because especially those guys are so down to earth. They are so into the music. They made it feel very easy, because no ego. Like none of these guys came into the studio like, hey man, like it was so easy because of if I might go some other guys who are not at that level, it might have been more difficult, But and then at that time, it's funny because now I think about it, it's like, oh my God, I mean, those are heavy, like the heavyweight cats, but
yeah.
At that time, I was like, yeah, I mean, I knew like they are the heavy cats, but like, Mark and Chris, they were like 30 something.
Yeah.
They kind of the young guys that they were killing it, like amazing playing, but and Lionel was my brother. Aaron was super young. He was like 20 years old, or like 22, I don't know. And John was a legend already, so he was the most. But because of the attitude of everybody being so nice and caring, and they liked the music, for me it was like the recording was super easy, and they were all helping, like very supportive, positive in a sense.
That's so important. Yeah.
Nobody was like, oh man, why you want to play that song again, or it was all just overall a really great experience.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, like, beautiful experience, man. What about Kenny, like Coalition? I love that record. Like, when was the first time you played with Kenny?
So 2009.
I was 9. Okay.
Yeah, 2009. I actually I was looking at, because we met in Siena, where I'm teaching at the Siena Jazz.
Yeah.
At the academy, and so I met Kenny in the summer program there in 2009, and we had the great hookups. It's like, all right, let's play, and Coalition. I mean, it simply came because, like I told you the story how Kenny and Lionel, they hooked up, and it was kind of like we had this great session and we kept talking about doing something together, and at that point it was like, let's do a recording.
Okay.
And so I knew Josh or Redman from many years, even seeing him in New York, whatever, and we ran into each other in I remember it was in the North Sea Jazz Festival, and we hang and we talked, and it's like, man, we gotta play, we have to do something. So when this recording came, I said, wow, I just before that, I met him, like we were hanging, and so I said, let me ask if he can do it, and if the dates are good, and he wanted to do it, he was available, and so we did Triumph, and Kenny loved it so much of that. And then he says it. He's like, basically he just stole my band and put Miguel Zenon and Benjamin Koppel instead of Josh, and that's how the Coalition came. But it's different because you see, if you listen to the Kenny Werner's Coalition and if you listen to Triumph, again, I have already that openness that the
writing is different. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the writing, and that I don't want necessarily the bass. So in Coalition, in Kenny's band, Kenny did want to have from Lionel coming that heavy bass line, you know, not all the time, but like he kind of wanted more that, and the music he wrote had some specific bass lines. So yeah, it's different. But he, you know, Kenny says it is like, in fact, oh man, I gotta play, because I was just, it's so funny you ask about these things, because a few weeks ago, I was watching one of these. Let's see. No, I'm gonna find
That
it.
Kenny has on YouTube, this kind of master classes, or
No,
no?
it's not. No, it's, I have it in my phone,
Oh, okay.
in my photos, where he is talking about my project, and the funny thing is that he's saying, let's see if, man, if I find it for you, you're not gonna believe this. That what happened is, he says that, like, wow, I love Frank's band so much that I just stole his band. So I think it could have been 2012, because it was right after. It's like he's talking about, but now I'm not gonna find it.
That's
I mean,
okay.
it's
Yeah.
whatever. But he just says that, and it's like, you know what? You're not gonna believe. This is the video. Uh, uh,
They left a lot of room for us to all experiment.
so he's talking about that.
Josh and Lionel. It's the first time I recorded with any of them.
I
It really inspired
wait.
me to put the group together that I'm presently recording with. But
Did you hear?
Yeah.
It really inspired me to put together the group that I'm doing now. That Ferenc is
That's
playing.
beautiful. Yeah.
So it's funny. I was looking through some old photos a few weeks ago, and then I found this video that he's talking about the project. It was just after we recorded it. So
That's amazing, man. Yeah. So cool.
thanks.
Cool. Great, Ferenc. You know, I will give you a nice reminder of the Sundays. But thanks for sharing some of this stuff, man. So, and you know.
You're welcome. Thanks for doing that, and with all the great musicians. And
Yeah, so much fun to talk to you guys always. And I hope to see you in Europe again soon. So next.